Now, according to SARS, transport equipment exports from South Africa in 2015 were valued at nearly $9 billion, 24% higher than the year before. Now, the category was the third largest by value of exports after mineral products and precious stones. This is The Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and tonight I'm joined by Jeff Nemeth, who is the president and chief executive of Ford Motor Company, Southern Africa. He's just invested 2.5 billion rand into the car manufacturing sector, and we're going to talk about why car manufacturers like producing SUVs in South Africa. Recently, of course, BMW announced a much bigger investment in expanding the X3 production in South Africa, primarily for American export. I mean, $167 million, I think that's what 2.5 billion rand translates to, give or take, depending on which way the political winds are blowing on a day, Jeff. Give me a sense of that as an investment. $167 feels like Ford chump change.
Oh, I wouldn't say that at all, Bruce. When we introduced the Ranger, which was in 2011, we spent $3.4 billion, and that was converting our plant from building Rangers, Focuses, Bantams, and Mazda 3s to just doing Rangers.
The Ranger, we would call it the Ford Bucky. It's a bit like the Toyota Hilux, but of Ford.
Exactly.
It's that answer. This is ramping up the same Silverton production line to compete now with the Fortuner.
Right. Well, I probably would have described it as the Ford Ranger. You know, the Toyota Hilux is a bit like a Ford Ranger.
Forgive me.
Right. So, but nonetheless, we So that's the Bucky, and this is the SUV version that's off of it. So when you think about reconfiguring our whole plant and spending $3.4 billion in 2011, spending $2.5 to put the Everest in is really a pretty significant investment. And if you've already have a site, and we call it, you've either got a greenfield or a brownfield, right? And what we're doing is we're introducing it into a brownfield. The paint shop's there, the plant's there. We're putting a whole body shop in, which is really where a lot of the investment is, because all the little bitty pieces of metal come in and we weld them all together to form what we call the body in white, or the street metal.
This is all part of the DTI and its efforts to try and get some manufacturing in South Africa. They make it worth your while, I guess, to do so, to make the investment.
Absolutely. And if it wasn't for the APDP, it would be really hard to make a business case out of manufacturing in South Africa. But what the APDP did is it took that model of making a lot of different nameplates in relatively small volumes and turned it into, because of their 50,000 unit minimum, turned it into a more of a globally competitive style of manufacturing, which is one model down an assembly line, one right after the other. They all look alike, and that way you can focus on economies of scale, on the right training for your employees, and on global levels of quality.
Now, how does it make a difference, though? I mean, sure, you invest $167 million, 2.5 billion rand into South Africa to enhance a production facility. Do you create more jobs? Do you create more local procurement?
Absolutely. So what we've done is by bringing the Everest it's currently imported from Thailand, and by localizing it, what we're doing is we're creating 1,200 jobs throughout our value chain.
Brand new jobs throughout the value chain, right?
Brand new jobs, both in Silverton, our Silverton assembly plant, and in our value chain, and also down in our engine plant in Port Elizabeth, because the engines for the Everest are all coming from our engine manufacturing facility down in Struendale in Port Elizabeth. And by doing that, then not only do we create those jobs in our value chain, but then all of the indirect support for those jobs that we don't even count in our numbers, the people that clean the factories, that provide the tools, that give all the supplies, the gloves, the uniforms to all of our suppliers, all of that then grows from this investment as well.
Now, we look at local procurement, and it's an absolutely crucial factor when it comes to the MDP. What? MPDP, there we go.
Yeah.
Motor Industry Development, that thing. Yeah. Yes, there we go. We look at that and local procurement. We're not at the cutting edge of motor industry technology. We can make the mats, we can make, I don't know, steering wheels perhaps, but not the electronic bits. What can we make here for you?
Well, actually, the level of supplier capability in South Africa has increased since the MIDP was introduced 20 years ago, and its successor is the APDP, which started in 2012. And it's part of that is really that investment, that support that we get from the government is exactly as you said, Bruce, to really drive depth in our supply chain and in our localization. And some of the things that we've seen recently, Sasol has started doing polymers. And so we've got compounders now entering South Africa, because we import our little plastic beads that we use to make the instrument panel, the doors, and the console, things. We're now able to source those locally, which never was here before.
And those components then get manufactured here too.
And absolutely, the components are all here as well. And we continue to bring more and more global manufacturers to South Africa. And generally, the way they enter is they find a local manufacturing entity that doesn't have the technology reach that they can bring, and then they become an equity partner with that local company, and then they bring all that global capability, and then we can start sourcing more things in South Africa that we've always imported in the past.
Now, how much capacity are you going to have for this SUV, manufacturing capacity in South Africa? How many do you anticipate initially, with this extension, you'll be producing by this time next year?
Well, our capacity that we're installing is 10,000. And
10,000 per year.
10,000 per year, and of course we're always striving to fill our capacity. So over time we would expect to get to that level of production. Right now our Ranger is operating at full capacity,
which is
100,000 a year.
Okay.
And then the Everest another 10. So our plant will be at 110,000.
How many of the 100,000 Rangers are bought locally versus exported?
We do about 35,000. Locally, and all the rest are exported. So,
and then in terms of the Everest, because I'm assuming it's a more expensive vehicle, there's a higher profit margin on it. But from an export perspective, we'd like to see some of those out the country too, please.
We will be exporting them. I'd say maybe swap that. So for the Ranger, we've got about 60 to 65% export. For the Everest, it'll probably be about 60 to 65% domestic.
And again, demand for these vehicles. We see people buying million-rand cars nowadays. It's terrifying. A couple of years ago, you could have bought a house for it. You'll be in that ballpark, I guess.
Oh, we won't be near $1 million, Bruce.
Where is it going to be retailing at?
Well, that segment of the market is kind of in the 500,000 to 600,000 range. So we haven't announced pricing yet, but I suspect that it'll be in kind of that ballpark.
So you're competing then in the Fortuner market,
exactly.
that would be market.
They'd be head to head.
Yeah, and again, demand in South Africa, we've seen latest vehicle sales showing quite sharp declines year on year. The South African economy, S&P this week, telling us they're anticipating 0.8% growth. That's pretty much in line with what the Reserve Bank is anticipating in South Africa. Is there really that market in South Africa for you? Highly competitive market?
Yeah, well, South Africa is kind of interesting, the automotive industry in that regard, because over the last 4 or 5 years, we've really struggled with GDP growth rates, right? Kind of below 2 range. And yet the automotive industry has been relatively buoyant in that context. So been relatively flat. It's only last year that it turned down some.
About 14%, right?
Fourth quarter was about 14% down. The full year was about 4%.
Yeah.
And we were up 8 last year, or 10. We were up 10 last year. In the first quarter, we're up 8.
Yeah.
And the industry's down another 8. So we're continuing to Ford is continuing to outpace the industry, and it's really on the strength of our local production, the Ranger primarily, and we're hoping to continue that strength with the Everest.
Does manufacturing locally make you more competitive in the South African market?
It does, Bruce, because there's import duties, right? So you avoid the import duties. Then on top of that, if you manufacture locally, you do get you get benefit from the government's APDP program that we talked about. We pass that on to the customers as well. So the value you get from buying a product built in South Africa is much better than the value you get on an import generally, and that's why you see the total sales of domestically produced vehicles compared to imported vehicles there's a greater percentage of the industry.
How does the currency play? Because we've seen massive depreciation of the rand in recent years, bits of recovery, bits of weakness, one of the worst performing emerging market currencies in the world last year, arguably one of the better ones this year. That lack of certainty must have an impact on the way you think about things?
Yeah, as a multinational investing, we can pick kind of where we want to put our plants, right? And the great thing about South Africa is it's got a robust domestic industry. And the more we can localize, the less impact the rand has on us. Obviously, the more parts we buy in rand because we're selling the vehicle in rand, the better off we are, the less exposed we are to volatility in currencies. But it's the volatility that makes the investment difficult.
Yeah.
Right. So when our principals in Detroit are deciding where am I going to put my money, our 167 million, which is really chump change.
Okay.
They look at stability. What's the probability that we're going to get the returns that we're predicting on this investment that we're making? And the danger when the rand is bouncing around is that they take a wait and see attitude.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
Again, does our politics affect the way in which Detroit sees an investment? The fact that this 167 million is coming at a time where domestically we feel political uncertainty, but General Electric, Jeff Immelt was here the other day, and he's apparently going hell for leather, big investment plans through the African continent despite low oil prices. He's taking a 20-year view. What's the forward view?
Yeah, well, we've been here 90 years, Bruce, so our view's even longer, and we're here to stay. But what really excites us about South Africa is just the tenets of democracy, right? And we believe in the institutions that South Africa's put in place.
Recently reinforced quite strongly.
They have been, and as some people would view kind of what's going on as negative, there's also the positive side, as you just pointed out, right? The Constitutional Court is very much demonstrating that they're going to uphold the Constitution. So that's really good for our principals when they're looking at South Africa, and taking that long view. There's nothing that has wavered our confidence in the South African political system.
I saw a Model T the other day at the Franschhoek Motor Museum. Beautiful car. It was black. Any color I can get the Everest in if I choose to buy one?
Oh,
absolutely. Any color as long as it's
black, right?
Yeah.
And no, we've got a full range of colors. I think we've got 12 colors. So I'm driving a red one today on the way over here.
How does it drive?
Oh, it's
like the Fortuner.
It's much better. It's actually got a wider stance and a little bit lower center of gravity, so it's really stable. It also has electronic stability control, so it actually vectors the torque to the wheels, and if you start getting into a situation where you get into a skid, it actually helps the car stabilize itself. And then it also has adaptive cruise control, so it keeps a safe distance, automatically puts on the brakes if you get too close to the person in front of you.
When is Ford going to give us a driverless car?
It's not that far off, Bruce. And that's when I talk about things like autonomous or like adaptive cruise control.
But that's the first step, isn't it? It's towards the car thinking for you as you drive. Is it a 5-year game? Is it a 10-year game?
Oh, I'm going to guess, right? So I'm not part of the product planning community in Detroit, but I think it would be closer to 5 than 10.
I suspect you're right. Jeff Niemuth, he's president and chief executive of Ford Motor Company in Southern Africa. $167 million, 2.5 billion rand gets you a lot in South Africa, expanding an existing plant at Silverton to incorporate the new Ford Everest production facility in South Africa. More Money Makers tomorrow. Till then, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.